Hey, what's up, guys? This is Logan Shinholster on today's Contractor Growth Network. So I'm actually sitting down and talking with Alex, who's Full Sales videographer. His dad is actually a delivery guy. He owns his own company for home heating oil. And the more that I talk with Alex, the more I realize his dad is literally a contractor. So it's been kind of a fun journey watching Alex go from, since he's been here for 6-7 months now, talking about some of the principles and the ideas behind what we talk about and how it relates to his dad, because his dad is literally a contractor. So stick with it. We'll just have a good open discussion, and I think you might find that you're a lot more like his dad than you may think you are. So here we go. Hey guys, all right, this is Logan, and today I'm sitting down with Alex Timms, who is, how would you describe your position with Full Sail? What's the official title?
Social media video editor.
Social media video editor. So he's the guy that any of the videos, if you're watching this on YouTube, he's the one that's going to be putting this together. If you're listening to this podcast, he strips the audio from the video, puts it out there. So and anything that you see online, video-wise or media-wise, that's pretty much him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the media dog.
The big media dog. So today, Alex, well, let's just do this. Talk to me about a bit about your background and your dad, and I know you worked with him. So kind of give me a bit of a backstory so everybody has a good understanding of this is who we're talking to.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up on Long Island, so we have all four seasons, if you will. Winters can be cold. There's a lot of snow that could come. Obviously, summertime is the lull, like a lot of seasonal contractors if you're a winter contractor. But my dad owns a home heating oil company. So basically, when I was younger, you wouldn't really see him. Small business owner, 3-4 employees, most of them seasonal. So, in the summertime, they have a second job. So when I was younger, really didn't see him a lot. He was working, trying to build up the business. And it wasn't until I was old enough to work in high school and moving in more summers in college where I was able to kind of help him out and work with him and learn that side of what he does in the business. For me, you have to get a certain license to drive oil trucks, CDL. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't drive the truck, but I could pull the hose for him. And my dad's 60, almost 61. So, his body ain't like it used to be. So yeah. Pulling the hose, which is surprisingly about 25 pounds, can go 175 feet. It was a big help. But essentially, I would just fill up the houses for him eventually, and learn a lot about kind of what goes into maintaining an oil tank. What kind of houses. Where the fill pipe would be and all that stuff. So it was pretty good. It was pretty cool job.
How does he get into something like that? Because that's, a lot of contractors I just was handy around the house, and then I started doing it for friends, and then next thing you know, I'm open for business. But are people calling him up, what's your dad's name?
Mike.
Mike, hey, Mike, you know anybody that's got gas? And he's like, actually, let me see what I can figure out. How do you start into that business?
So it's funny you say, what's his name? Because everyone calls him Tim.
Uh-huh.
Or Tim's, because no one remembers. They just think Mike Timms. They go, oh, hey, Tim. Hey, Timmy. That was my whole childhood, too. So it's funny that you said that. But, so he was in the Marines for about 4 years, mm-hmm. right out of high school. And he got out, and it was, my grandfather, so his father worked 3 jobs. It was work ethic from the beginning.
This is all up in the Hamptons?
So they grew up a little bit kind of like Ronkonkoma area, if anyone knows where that is. It's kind of like mid Long Island.
Okay.
So when I was a child, we moved more out towards the Hamptons. But yeah, so he just started to open up a couple gas stations, and he was big into auto mechanics, and he jokes around that he didn't really go to school. He just went to auto mechanic school in mm-hmm. high school. So that was his big thing. Could rebuild a car, was into it. And then kind of just had an opportunity to own a gas station, owned a couple with a partner, and then he ended up just, somebody offered him to drive a truck for Petroleum, which is one of the big oil suppliers up there. And he liked it, decided to venture off on his own business because he didn't like working for somebody, mm-hmm. and started Classic Fuel, I believe, I want to say the early 90s, maybe late 80s, mm-hmm. Way before I was born. And, and then he ended up selling that off in about 98 when I was 2. And
how come? Why?
Petro, the same company, uh-huh. actually offered to buy it. And, it's a very lucrative business if you do it right. And so on Long Island, there's 3 probably big, companies, Sweezy, Sloman's, and Petro. And they try to buy up all the small companies to make their
roll-up stuff.
Yeah, their demographic larger.
Yeah.
And my dad's a very very smart man for someone who didn't really take school seriously and didn't go to college. And, he knows where he could have marketed his business, where he could have, where he was good at with his demographic. He was very people pleasing, good at talking to people, and just did a great job. And it was customer service and, just really knowing what people wanted in an oil company from the get-go.
So for the sale, was it pretty much like the Petro came in and just said, look, we're buying your business because the customers, or was there because I know you got the McDonald's franchise, which is when somebody opens a McDonald's, there's literally a dictionary of this is where the light switch is going to be, this is the temperature, this is this is it tells you step by step of how to do everything.
Yeah.
Does he have that, or is this more of just he had just really good connections and the people, it was just recurring revenue, and that's what Petro wanted?
Yeah, I mean, if you're driving around, so you're going from house to house, so you can when we were out in the truck, you see oil companies left and right. There's thousands of them. But if you're a big company like Petro, you know who is the bigger of the smaller companies. And I wouldn't say my dad the company was, employee-wise huge, but he had, customers they were losing, Petro were to him. Because the way it works is those bigger companies like Petro, Sloman's, and Sweezy's, they want to get you on a contract because there's two real sides to, home heating oil. The service side with the burners and actually just delivering the fuel. So if you're in a contract, they have all your service, you're locked into a year, you're locked into that price, it goes up, it fluctuates with the stock market. So the other companies, the smaller companies like my father's, they just, you call them up, you need a delivery today, we'll put you on the list. That's just, there's no contracts, it's just a one-time thing. So when Petro sees that people leave, or they see their sticker on the fill pipe where they'll say Classic Fuel, which was the company back then, they'll be like, oh, we got to see what this guy does. They'll look more into you. And if it's a lucrative business where they can take your demographic and your clients, they'll take it all right from you and say, hey, we'll give you this. And
so it sounds to me like they're almost trying to create a monopoly.
Yeah.
So if they can literally just be the only company on the island, then you have to be locked into a service contract with them because that's just how they operate.
Exactly. They're trying to, they know there's two other big people. So if they don't offer them, the other people will. And if they don't come out, if they can get to you first, if they can get to you the higher price, they'll get it.
And are the other two people, were they also contract based?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so pretty much just the big dogs. It's like trying to buy a phone these days. Any sort of provider is going to lock you into a 2-year contract unless you want to pay some exorbitant amount of money for a new phone.
Yeah.
But it's the same style where if all the big dogs are doing it and they can crush out the little ones who are doing it their own different way, then they know that okay, this is going to be the best way to actually take full monopoly of this island.
Yeah, it's think of it like a gas station. You go, you're going to go to the 253 one, or you're going to go to the 299 one. You're going to want to go to the 253 one.
Sure.
So with oil, it's the same way. It changes every day. But with a contract, you have to, if you want an oil delivery, you have to go with Petro. The problem is, they can also get very booked out in the winter, fall months where it gets cold. So you try to sneak in a Classic Fuel or a Tim's Petroleum in there in between your deliveries because Petro's going to put you on the list for 3 weeks after.
Oh,
so that's what you try to do.
Okay.
So the big thing is there with Petro is if they see that, they're just going to try to take as many people, so they have to go on their schedule. You know what I mean? It's because they have hundreds of stops a day,
sure,
which is almost impossible. But if you have 10 trucks, that's 10 stops a truck.
Right.
That's very feasible.
Okay, so they buy your dad's business in 98. So what's your dad's plan at that point? Is this enough money that he's screw it, I'm going to retire and I'm be done? Or is he just you know what, this is just a good out. Let me figure out what's next in life.
I think he always says to me he never really wanted to do the oil business, but it was a good business and that's what he knew. So I think for as long as his do not compete was, I think he ended up actually driving for them or working for Petro during those years. But I think he was always kind of seeing, this is really what we want to do, what I want. And I think he always just liked working for himself, did not like working for somebody. And he's a very smart dude. He's always thinking about the next step. And I think working under people that weren't thinking like him made him more anxious to get back out there as a business owner.
So, okay, so he sells it off, and then he knows all this stuff, and he's staying within the company. So he kind of learns, the same way that he started off with somebody else, realized I don't want to work for somebody else, kind of sees maybe where they're doing stuff wrong, which is really how most contractors do it, where they either like just accidentally fall into it or they're working for somebody else. And if have you ever read the book The E-Myth?
No, I haven't.
So The E-Myth is, I think a lot of people read, I've read it, it's fantastic. And pretty much what Michael Gerber, the author, talks about is, yep, you work for somebody else, and then you see that they're not actually out there swinging the hammer, and you get frustrated because you're like, well, shit, I don't want to work for somebody else. Like, they're not even doing the work, they're making all the money. Let me go off on my own. And then you realize that there's a hell of a lot more to business themselves, which is what most contractors do, where you see it all day long in like the Facebook groups where they're like, yep, I'm off on my own. Okay, how do I actually generate work? And it's just like, well, okay, like either you have a lot of connections in the community that's going to kind of bankroll you until you can get there. It's cool, like the industry that your dad's in, because people need oil.
Yeah, you're always coming back for it.
Yeah, it's like it's recession proof, because you got to heat your house in the wintertime, and unless people move out, you're gonna need it.
Yeah, but
like with like remodeling, or during a recession, are people gonna need a brand new kitchen?
Yeah, it's with oil, it's so nowadays after the recession, I mean, people don't want to pay it. I mean, the problem is you're still working with people that don't want to pay for their fuel, don't want to pay for their oil.
Right.
They don't have to be home necessarily to get the delivery unless they're a problem customer.
So
the same kind of problems that contractors come into with getting the deposit at the site. When you're meeting up the consultation.
Is that how he does it? He like books a consultation. It's not just like, hey, I'll be out there at this time with your oil.
It's not necessarily a consultation, but when they call up for an order, there's a whole process you have to go through to figure out first, just to execute the delivery to the right house. And the big thing with my dad that a lot of companies don't really do is right off the bat is a cash or credit. Same price, doesn't matter, but is it cash or credit? So they know, all right, if it's credit, let me run the card now. They see if it goes through first before they actually go out there. And that's kind of where, that's where your loyal customers, you can trust them. But if it's a brand new customer, you got to get that payment through immediately.
So how does he know? Because I think that's what a lot of people fall victim to is, well, I don't know the square footage of the house. I don't know what exactly they're looking for. So I don't know what this thing is going to cost just by a phone call. So how does he know?
So every tank, there's a certain amount of gallons a tank can hold. So most of them can hold about 275. It's a 300-gallon tank.
Okay.
So at full, it's 275. So if you know what kind of tank you have in the basement, it's usually basement is an outdoor one. Then you're good. Usually, and then the fill pipe, if it's a basement tank, the fill pipe will stick out of the house, and that's where you hook up the hose to fill up the tank. So really, the only questions you got to know is what color is the house. What.
Wait, like the color matters?
Yeah, because we've had problems where we delivered to the wrong house.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Not
if it was
about
like,
the actual.
Hey, what color? Okay, you definitely have a 270. Yeah, okay.
All logistical stuff.
Yeah, okay.
But, for the actual tank though, what tank size it is? Because if you say I have a 270, 550 tank, and you try to fill up, or if you say you have a 1,000-gallon tank and you only fill up, you fill up more than that, it's going to be a spill, and the basement's going to be filled with oil, and that's a big problem.
Do you know? Like, does your dad know beforehand? Like, when he gets out there, he goes, okay, I know you said 500, but this is actually a 250. So okay, so after a couple mistakes, you probably know.
When you fill up a house, there's a whistle. So when that whistle gets like, none anymore, it just gets away, and you hear like a gurgle in the oil, that means you've hit the top. So if you go past that, it's overflowing the tank, because in the actual tank, there's pipes and all that stuff to maintenance it. There's like a reader to see how many gallons are actually in your tank. So yeah, we had spills before. It's natural. It's like contractors, something breaks on the job.
Yeah, it's natural. Part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's especially if a basement tank, if it's a finished basement, usually they're hiding the tank, making it very hard to get to. So that's very tough to your basement's going to smell like oil, which is a problem. But that's also where relying on the drivers, the workers, also comes into play, where they need to know that too. That's what training.
Okay, so walk me through that. So your dad sells the first business, starts working again, and then when does he go back in, and why? Why does he go back into the oil business?
So I believe it was 3 years after, so I would say it was probably like 2002 maybe.
Okay.
That he gets back in, and it's just because he just that's all he knew. That's all he knew. He knew how to do it. He knew it was a good business. If you do it right in the winter, it's a great business, and he knew he could push himself to do it all year round, and he didn't have to get another work in sprinklers or landscaping in the summer like most people do. And he saw that the the market with a lot of the smaller companies, that's what they did. They only focused on it, 3 months out of the year. So if he could do it 12, that's fine. And, I think a lot of it has to do with who you are as a person. And a lot of times he's a one-man crew. He can answer the phones, he can drive the truck, and he makes the deliveries. So knowing that he can do that on the start made it a lot simple. Also, it was back in early 2000s a lot easier to get truck drivers. It's still kind of transitioning to where college became this premium thing. So people were coming out of high school looking for, labor jobs like that. So driving a truck was a lot more lucrative than maybe working out in landscaping all day.
Okay, so he gets back into it, and it's just him. So, is it still just him?
Him and a secretary. I know my mom was his receptionist for a while, and then aunts and friends and all that, and then eventually you get the secretary that he has now for about 10-15 years now.
So with that, so it's just him rolling around. So his overhead is, it's the truck,
it's oil.
Yeah, so that's really it. Does he want what's his end goal at this point? Because he's now 60.
Yeah, 60. So right now, just make it scalable. I know I've had a conversation with them recently about we used to cover from Queens to Montauk, which if Long Island, that's
massive.
Yeah. So over the years, we've trimmed that down to where there's 2 counties on Long Island: Suffolk County, where we're stationed at, and we're more towards the eastern part, and Nassau County, which is more the city.
Sure.
We've cut out Nassau County, maybe besides a couple loyal customers that don't want to leave, but that's kind of where we cut out. Just because driving all the way out there for one stop compared to 10 locals in where the shop is doesn't even compare overhead-wise.
And is he always does he factor that in?
Yes.
Okay, so he was factoring in
yes.
If you're going to be in Queens, that's fine. It's going to be pretty.
So the further you are from the shop, the more it will be per gallon, just because of that.
Okay.
So there's obviously deals you bake with people contractors will make that too, but it's you got to factor in all that overhead of you got to drive an hour and a half just to get to a stop compared to 5 minutes down the road. So it's overhead. It doesn't seem like a lot, but when you get into miles per gallon of just the truck, the maintenance, the daily wear and tear of a diesel truck, a huge oil truck,
it adds up.
Yeah.
And then with that, so he's got now he's just narrowed it down. Did he find when he got back into the business in 2001 any challenges that he thought, well, I've already done this for 8 years, I've sold one thing off, this is going to be a cakewalk? Were there obstacles that he just didn't think was going to be a thing, but actually was?
I think in the beginning where you come back and call customers, say, hey, I'm opening up my own business again, and them, customers just kind of not batting an eye, thinking it's just going to be called Classic Fuel again.
Sure.
But now it's called Tim's Petroleum because he's not going to use the same name. He can't. So that first marketing push to where, no, it's Tim's Petroleum, or who are you going to call? Oh, I think it's called Classic Fuel, and it goes right to Petro. That's kind of where it is. But I think just making sure he could do all the work that was coming in and make sure he scaled it right. I mean, now being in the business, overall, he's been in oil for 35 years. So, right. Knowing how now knows how to scale it, but getting back into the business, it was kind of the struggle of how do I take what I learned in my own business, what I learned working for Petro, to this one now, so make it more successful.
So let's say, so he starts in 1990. Was that the first one that he started?
I want to say, we'll call it 1990.
1990. Yeah. So in 1990, I know for my dad at least, that he was still doing the swimming pool stuff. And then when he starts his pond company in 2001, that's, I think Facebook and social media started coming out. That was still 6 years prior. So what's he done? Because this is a growth talk. What does he do in 1990 to try to generate business? Do you have any idea? And then what's he doing now?
Penny Saver.
Penny Saver magazine
was his big thing. I remember all the time. It was in our house, bathroom, all the time. You'd see Tim's Petroleum ad. He was so happy. Yellow Pages. I know we have a YouTube video about that. And then it was really just word of mouth. It's amazing how, I don't want to say his demographic is old, but his demographic is old. You're not really buying, how many kids in their 20s and 30s really have it? A lot of times, especially in the Hamptons, it's their parents paying for it anyway.
Right.
So word of mouth was big too. But, Penny Saver back then was a big deal. So that was probably his biggest marketing push.
Is that still, is that effective? Does he even use it anymore?
No. And it's funny, we had a conversation about that when I first was hired here. I'm like, man, Penny Saver, I haven't used that in years. And now he took a lot when it kind of went more digital. he was really in onto the website, making it orders just come through the website. And that's eventually where he wants to go, is that he doesn't have to talk to anybody. It's just you order online, he gets it on his email, and he's like, oh, going right to the stop.
Is that what he wants? So I know you said he wants that, but I know initially you said he's a big people person, he's big on customer service. Does he want it where it's just like his phone rings and it's like, okay, more money?
More just the email notification that he got to stop, not more of calling on the phone. He is a people person, but that's more of the the older customers that have been with him for 30 years.
Okay.
I'd say a lot of times it's the newer customers, because you look at the breed, it's a lot of customers are now dying off where you need the refresh.
Right.
And that's kind of where he's at. He's been at for the last 5 years, where the website has helped him so tremendously, because it's just so easy for customers to, where do you live? What town? What zip code? Perfect. Do fill out this information. We'll get to you're on the list.
Sure.
And he's actually prioritized you going on the website instead of going on, when you go on vacations or in the summertime when he's not really working every day, it's the voicemail says go to the website or you're not getting called back. And customers are forced to go to that if they want they know the business is good. They know that this guy's reliable. It's good oil, which I say in quotes because there's no such thing as good or bad oil, but people actually think that. So that whole reputation and that whole, reputation he built for himself will help people translate to online.
Because that's kind of what we're doing with like Great American. I was talking with them when we first started doing stuff. They're a landscape company, and I was like, how are you guys getting customers now? Like, you're a pretty big operation, especially for a landscape company. What's worked? And Kevin, the owner, was like, honestly, everybody knows me.
Yeah.
And he's like, since I'm phasing out and I'm not shutting the company down, I can't be the main connection anymore. So that's where we're now transitioning from all the stuff that he's always done, which referrals are great, but if you're trying to get rid of the business and the referrals aren't to the business, but the referrals are to actually you specifically, it's tough, because it's like, hey, I was taught, like right now, like with Full Sail, like the company is like, it's still Logan, like it's still like, hey, like I talked to so-and-so and they said, contact Logan. They didn't say contact Full Sail because there's 5 of us. So it's like, we're still small, we're still new, and I'm still like that main thing. And obviously that's not the end goal, but that's just the situation that we're in. But I know with the landscape company, the same deal but they've been in business for 30 years, and he has the connections because he's like the same, super active, very active in the community, awesome dude to talk to. And now they're trying to transition from he's the face to let's try to make the company more of the face, so that way people want to hire the company for the brand instead of just the guy. So that's where the digital stuff comes in, but it's a whole different ball game when you're used to warm referrals and warm leads of people calling up, hey, I'm looking for Mike or Tim or whatever your name is. And I was talking to Deborah down the road and she said that you're great. And so it's a hell of a lot different when somebody's calling you up and they're looking, to have that warm connection because their friend told them versus, hey, what's your prices? Which is probably, is that kind of how it's transitioned for him a little bit?
So there's a lot of price shoppers out there. A lot of them are like, what's your price? And, my dad's not on the cheaper side of those companies. There's cheaper options out there, but if you're local, especially if you're local, I'm gonna be there in 2 seconds. I mean, you're centrally located in the town. I'll be there in 3 seconds.
Is that the big so it's price and is it timing? Is that what people want?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how it was when I was younger, but he said it's totally changed. I mean, now it's just people want the price. They don't even say hi on the phone. They're like, what? How cheap are you? Like that's how they'll say it. So it's how quick they can get it because they're always out of fuel. And if you're out of fuel, you can't take a hot shower. There's no hot water. You can't. If it's wintertime, your house is freezing, and you could freeze your pipes, which you all know how bad that is. So there's problems with that, which people don't understand. They just think, oh, why can't you get me today? I'm like, because I have 50 other people that just called
you're on the phone with me. Just hop off the phone and come on over here.
Yeah, which is why especially if he's in the truck helping out because of a small company, like contractors, they go out and, if they have 2 employees, they have to help, remodel the kitchen, remodel the bathroom. He has to go out there on the truck. So if he gets an email on his phone, it's way easier and less time consuming than having to call up and go through the whole process because they've already done it without him even having to talk to them. And he could do it as he's filling up the house. Oh, I got an order right around the block. Let's go there next. That's how simple online can make it instead of having to call up and call you back in the truck.
Okay, so let's walk through that. So price versus timing. I would imagine if somebody's out of oil, price is important, but not as important as timing.
Yeah.
So, because in my mind, I have a couple things that I could be like, oh, this is what I would do if I'm him to try to deal with that. But what does he do if somebody like is there like a rotation that he tries to get people on, and then that way he knows?
Yeah. So there's a lot of like summer homes as well he does. So there's an automatic delivery to where there's a system, a whole database. When was your last delivery? And he knows because of just being in the business, all right, this guy should be out of fuel by this point. So it comes up in the system when it gets around that point. Hey, look for this guy. If you're on automatic delivery, which you have to tell him at first, you can't just say, oh, you're just like, oh, well, I thought you guys would just call me back.
How many people do that? Like
a lot.
Because I would assume that's just like one of those things that,
especially if you own a beach house in the Hamptons, like you're not there, you're in Nassau, so you're that's you're not really thinking about that house all the time.
That's what I'm thinking. Like for my car, like if they said, hey, you could either come on in and call us up every time you want your oil change, or we'll just automatically come out to you, change it for you when you're at work or you're wherever, I would sign up for that all day long.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's low maintenance, and that just like not even thinking about it. And you'll have that contact. You always preach that. You always want to. You don't want to just not oh, did you fill up my house? There's a receipt that comes in the mail. Like he talks to them and say, hey, I just filled you up. Don't worry about it. If there's big storms coming, people might call him up. Hey, can you make sure you get me? He goes, nope, you're already on the list. Like that's that's the kind of things. But it's that convenience where it seems so obvious, but a lot of companies don't do that. They just think you're gonna call me when you need oil, and to think that much ahead for your customer, they see that. People see that. So as much as he is a people person, and that side of the business is great, it's that automated of the computer tells him, oh, this is up here. Oh, I got another delivery right around the block. I can do this. There's a driver going up there. It's a lot of logistics, but all going digitally has probably enhanced that tenfold.
So I listened to a podcast. It was a dude. He was talking about. He's a remodeler, big remodeler spokesperson. He's talking about selling, in essence, service contracts for remodeling, because project by project, you're always in acquisition mode. But with your dad, once you get somebody on, I mean, they're not gonna be like, oh, that last guy was a dick. We want a different, because it's not like there's no artistry involved in oil, just like there's not really much artistry involved in like roofing necessarily. Like, yes, there's ways to do it right and wrong, but it's not like people are gonna, oh man, the way that he shingled that roof, like that's what I want. I'm gonna go for him. While with remodeling, it is. So the way that he has it set up, where it's really just super automated, and all he's doing is just get clients in, retain them, because once you bring them in, I mean, what is his like retention rate? It's got to be pretty high.
It's amazing, yeah. And because there's three big things to it. It's price is huge. Obviously, you don't want to overpay. But service, and if you're not spilling oil all over the new paved driveway, and it's little things like parking the truck on they just got, I know we do a lot of, doctors and stuff, and they get their driveway done probably once every 2 years because they're just blowing money. And to not park the truck and figure out ways to get to it without having to mess up their brand new driveway, and little things like that they see that and like, yeah, we're going to go with that guy.
Now, does he showcase that? Because that's our big thing with like websites and stuff like that, is like, people go, oh, well, like I had a dude the other day, he was like, sell me on the value of your website. And I'm just like, all right, bro, like that's like, come on. Like, but I'm like sitting there, and like, if anybody ever says like, why is your website way more expensive than somebody else's? I'm like, okay, let's talk about your client. Why do they want to hire, why do they want their kitchen remodeled? Well, they don't like it because it doesn't look good. Well, how do they know it doesn't look good? Well, they've been looking on Pinterest. Well, what do they see on Pinterest? Well, they saw this, this, and this. Okay, did they just see a kitchen, or is there something else? Well, I guess there was a family in the kitchen on Pinterest. Well, what do you mean? Like, why is that important? Well, like, my client is usually a family. I'm like, so would it make sense to, instead of trying to sell a kitchen, to sell the idea of connection with your family in there? And they're like, oh, okay. So that's like, literally like if you're listening to this, you ever call me up and you're like, well, why is your stuff more expensive? I'm going to sell you on how to sell your clients, and then just say that's what we put on the website. So does your dad do any of that stuff where he tries to get out in front of like the little things that people, like, nobody really thinks about the driveway stuff? Like, nobody's like, well, I'm going to pay more money because this guy I know is not going to mess up my driveway. People just don't think about that. So does he do anything to be out in front of it, or is it just kind of like it just naturally happens that way?
Yeah, no, definitely. If he sees someone on the fence of well, there's a guy that they say he's $2.89 a gallon. Someone's but he's $2.79. My dad would do his best he can. He's like, yeah, but we're gonna get there. We'll get you out tomorrow. That guy gets you out in 2 weeks, and we'll he's like, you got a new driveway. You got good fresh sod. Okay, we're not gonna park on your grass. Which it's the laziness, the carelessness that some companies have and their drivers have is big. And my dad, there's one issue in the business, and it's because it's so seasonal, it's finding truck drivers.
Uh-huh.
But also the problem is my dad has that high standard to where his name's on the company. And I know a recent YouTube video was naming your company.
Right.
The same thing. And because of that, it makes it harder to hire too, because your name's on that company. So if you get a bad reputation, a bad review on Google or Facebook, it goes 10 times further because, that's you. That's your legacy. So hiring drivers, because his hiring process is probably 10 more questions than the other companies,
right.
because he needs that guy who's not going to park on the grass. If it's a brand new driver, have that common sense, which is a struggle sometimes because people don't really have common sense.
And you also, like, what we find is you got to then pay those people pretty well because,
Mm-hmm.
like, somebody who there's not that many, like, Columbos out there that are just
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm just going to do a really good job and kill it for you for $13 an hour.
Yeah.
Those people, like, they're smart enough to know that they're worth more than that. So I hear that a lot with, like, oh, yeah, I'm having trouble, like, keeping guys. And, like, people just make stupid mistakes. And it's like, well, what do you pay them? Like, oh, well, I got them. They just, they either just came out of high school or they've been kind of bopping around jobs and they just need to get on their feet. So I'm giving them, minimum wage. It's like, well, if you're going to pay a minimum wage, you better expect to make, or to get minimum wage out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also back into the pricing idea of that if you don't price yourself properly, then it's tough to, like, actually pay people more so of what they're worth.
Yeah.
Because that's why, like, we've done it, like, with Turner. Turner actually came in. Turner's our content guy. He came in and he was unpaid intern because this was like almost like 2 years ago, and we just needed somebody. We didn't have the funds to, like, pay somebody, but I know with, like, writers out of college, because he just graduated, they need experience and nobody will take them on. So like, screw it, this would be a win-win. And after like a month, the work was really good, and I was like, I feel bad, dude. Like, let me just start you off paying you something so you at least get, you feel like it's more worth it for you, because doing something for free is to get experience is good, but if to get paid and get experience, it's like
win-win.
Yeah, and lo and behold, now he's here and he's full time and he's loving it. So it obviously worked out. But the charging what you're worth, so you can then turn around and pay guys, especially if your name's on the company. I mean, that's a struggle that every business falls into is how to hire, because it's tough. I mean, straight up, like, I see stuff that, like, everybody does that I'm like, oh, I wouldn't do it that way, and I'm like, is that wrong because it's actually wrong, or is it wrong just because I wouldn't do that way, which means it's actually probably right in reality. It's probably better than what I would do.
Yeah. And to be honest, last summer, I worked for my father when I got out of college in May of 2018 till I was hired here basically in February 2019. So I got, whole summer season, the fall and the winter. So I watched my dad hire a new driver in his, 50s, but, big guy, truck driver, fit the role, perfect. Just didn't know the oil side of the business.
Sure.
And let me tell you, I went on a couple stops with that guy, and my dad was basically like, hey, you know the business pretty well now. You know how to fill up a house. You can do it. Go with the other guy's name's Mike as well. Go with Mike and see how it goes. And you can just tell this guy didn't have it. And the hiring process of that was, he said he was a good truck driver, just needed to learn the oil, but he wasn't retaining it. He thought he knew it, didn't know it. And it was, if I wasn't there, basically the house would have been overflowing with oil still,
Really?
as we speak. I mean, the guy was, I don't want to say incompetent, but almost borderline incompetent. And when my dad saw that he didn't teach me anything. I just picked it up by visually seeing what he was doing. And I'm like, yeah, this is easy. Seeing that, I could pick it up without even getting taught. And this guy got 6 months of training and couldn't figure it out. That's where the hiring process goes. Okay, this upcoming winter, I need to step up my process of hiring people even more and ask more questions and ask the right questions. So he's 60 years old, been in the business for 35 years. He's still struggling with hiring people. So there's always going to be a dilemma, but he's always taught me, if you have to believe it in yourself. No one's going to care about your company more than you. So you need to just, trust yourself and make sure you're doing the right thing and hope that other people can follow that lead.
Yeah, I like that, because it's really just, it's back on him. I mean, because nobody's going to care more than you do. You're lucky because, like, maybe you've only been, like, on the job for a little bit, but when you grow up and that's your dad, like, it almost just kind of, like, flows down into you of, like, plus it's your last name on it as well.
Yeah.
So, and you don't,
Yeah, that's what everyone would go to stops, and there's been customers for 20 years, and they finally meet me.
Yeah.
At first, their question is, "Oh, are you little Mike?" I'm like, "No, God, no." But they're like, "You gonna take over the business?" And it's surprisingly, I'm surprised my dad never asked me that if I wanted to take over the business. I mean, obviously, it'd be mine if I wanted it, but he never really wanted that. It was simply because he knew that he was good at it. He knew that this was his dream, not dream, but this is what he was, good at and wanted to do it. And that was it. It was no, Tim's and Sons oil, it was none of that. So it was, that growing up like that was pretty cool. And then seeing it now as a 23-year-old kid was, pretty cool to see it in action like that.
So last thing, and then we'll segue out of this. Working here, I mean, you kind of see the ins and outs of different contracting businesses. It sounds like, like your dad really straight up is like, he goes through the exact same stuff as everybody that we work with. What would be like if you were to step into his business and just go, all right, Dad, for 1 year, I'm going to try to help you out with this, or this one thing. What would that be, whether it's marketing or anything? Like, what would you want to step in and help out with?
He's got a decent website, but I really think since working here, I've seen the value of how a website can really sell for you. I mean, like I said earlier, he's done a great job with getting orders to come through the website. I think it's just getting people to know that his website's out there.
Sure.
And I think, he does it really. He's not really big on Facebook with his company, and I think you've talked about this with your father. You get to 60, you're kind of checked out.
You're just trying to scale it down. What do you mean I got to learn something new? And it's just like...
Yeah. So, I mean, he's good with change, but, like, that stuff, he's like, I'm not going to market it, like, Facebook and all that. So, I think just making his website just a tad better to market, like, to sell from that, I think that's what I would improve with, too. But also, like, the Contractor Sales Academy and their, Shinfu process... When I went to the event in March, I immediately told my dad, like, man, if this was you like 15 years ago, this would have been awesome. But again, it went digitally. So for him, I think just more website than that. But those two just go hand in hand for me.
Especially if people are like calling him up and like leading off with like, hey, what's your price? And it's like, well, it all depends on what you're looking for. Can you tell me a bit about your project? And you're gonna have the people that are like, people are scared. Like buyers are like straight up there. Everybody's scared to get taken advantage of. So what I've kind of learned is like, hey, what's your price is always like that first question, just because they don't know what else to ask. And the people who are like genuinely nice people will be like, oh, well, I've got this kind of house. I don't really know what I need. I need, this, and this. And the people that are just like naturally just kind of a dick and you don't want to work with them anyway, they're like, I need my house filled.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Nice.
And then at that point, like that's like kind of your like cue of, okay, unless you're the lowest priced person that can get out here in 5 minutes, you don't have the sale.
No.
But just like knowing how to like ask those certain questions, because I know like my mom is a mortgage lender, and the rates, like, hey, what are your rates? It's like, oh great, I can tell you all about that. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions just to kind of see what makes the most sense for you?
Yeah.
And most people are nice people are going to be like, sure. Like I had like a guy the other day with my dad with like the lighting company. The dude's like, submits a form online, and my dad's like, oh, what are you looking for? He's like, I'm looking for somebody to come out here and give me a quote on this. And my dad's like, sure, man. You mind if I ask you a few questions? Okay. All right. So tell me a bit about like the project. What are you looking for? Well, I'm just looking for somebody to come out here. I've already had somebody come out here, give me a quote. I'm just looking for a couple quotes, and then figure out who I want from there. And like you can tell at that point, like this guy's not giving you anything. And my dad's like, all right, man. Well, I can totally do that. I'm more than happy. We actually have a consultation fee. And before he could even like start talking about what that cost, the guy's like, well, I'm absolutely not paying that. My dad's like, all right, well, it sounds like we're not going to be a good fit then, huh? Yeah. And the guy's like, nope, and he just hung up, and that was it.
Yeah.
So like you learn really fast, like.
Yeah, we had a summer house a little eastern out in Long Island, and we just got the whole thing renovated. And so about last year, about this time, they were going through contractors. My father was, and he always got, I'm gonna get 3 out there, and the first 2 guys, he said, they were just so quick to give you an estimate. Like, this, I'll just give you this. The third guy, though, he waited a couple of days just because he wanted to go through the entire project, meet my stepmom, meet my father, both parties, and kind of go. He kind of went through that whole process of, okay, let me actually give you a good price. And, he kind of ended up being like, oh, well, it's going to cost this. I'll have to outsource some stuff. And they were like, sure, whatever. And he wasn't the general contractor. They didn't hire him to do that, but he became the general contractor because he took it on himself, knowing that if I do this the right way, everything's going to come out in the end. And I think it just was finished like last week. And it was it came out great, and that guy got, paid great, but you know, every contractor he hired was a friend of his. He knew that he could do it. If there was, you know, delays, if they had other jobs, and he was like, no, you gotta get out here. So that guy was great, but I couldn't even imagine the other two guys that didn't even look at the inside of the house and wanted to give him a price.
Yeah,
which is nuts to me. But
it's too quick, and that's kind of like I used to be uncomfortable with like at like a longer interview process for hiring, and then started to kind of realize like people want like if they want this job, they want like you know, for you to ask them questions and learn more about them. Because if I had like one quick 15-minute sit down with you, Alex, and I was like, cool, tell me what you want to do. And you're like, honestly, I just like making videos. I'm like, perfect. Well, you want to come join us? And it'd be like, you sure?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
like you don't know anything about me, you know? So like,
Yeah.
people actually want that where you like go through the process. Some people don't. They just want it done. Like with oil, like they probably don't want like a 3-week process of like interviewing and making sure everything's perfect. But like, with certain things that it's like a life-changing decision. Like I do it with website, like, you know, hey, like, yeah, you know, I just want a website. What are you looking for? I'm like, look, dude, we're talking about potentially the future of your company. I can't do this in a 5-minute conversation.
Yeah.
If that's what you want, I'm not the company for you.
Yeah, no.
So I need, you know, do you have a business partner? Great. Get both people on the phone because, again, this is the future of your company. I can't just like wing it with you and just like give you an overview in 5 minutes, because if that's the case, then you're not that serious about this. And it's more of just like you're just trying to see if this even makes sense for you. So it's yeah.
And my father always told me that if you go into any business, doesn't have to be anything related to yours. To go to McDonald's, you just pick out the likes and dislikes of what you see in that business and try to apply it to yours.
I do that with dating.
Yeah,
like, that's what my dad's big thing is. Like, you break up with someone, it's like, great, take exactly what you liked, find someone else that has those, take what you didn't like, find someone who doesn't have those, and you're done.
Yeah, it's so simple because there's like even, you know, with websites, not every contracting industry is going to benefit the same way as the other. You know what I mean? There's comparables, obviously, home building, remodeling, and all that. But like, you know, if you're trying to, you know, build a barbecue repair, you know, business, different stuff's gonna work for you. So you just gotta take the, you know, the good that comes with it, and, you know, deal with the ones that don't work. You know?
Yeah.
What I mean? So
for sure. Well, cool, guys. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this, learning a little bit more about Alex and kind of where he came from. And it's cool to have an outsider perspective, because a lot of times they'll be like, I wonder if this will work for this marketing campaign. I'll be like, Alex, what would your dad say? And he'd be like, yeah, I don't think he's going to go for this. I'm like, all right, cool. So it all makes sense. So guys, if you're watching us on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that like button just because it really helps us out. But if you listen to the podcast, just, you know, please rate and review. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if you like this. And if you're watching this on YouTube, next time you see one of these, it's going to be a way better setup visually, just because we moved into this office like 3 days ago. So it should be pretty badass next time. So Alex, thanks for joining me, dude.
Thanks, Logan.
See you guys.